And joining me now from Washington is Congressman Jerry Connolly from Fairfax in the 11th District to talk more about this new creation of the Obama campaign called the Truth Team. And Congressman Connolly is going to be one of the chief representatives of this Virginia Truth Team. Congressman, tell me exactly what is the role of this new mechanism of the campaign?
Well, I think it's just to make sure that we're all sort of sticking with the truth in this political campaign. A number of us have watched this transformative president become a victim of some of the most scurrilous, vituperative comments and characterizations of any president in our living memory. And I think the time has come for that to stop, and a number of us are prepared to throw the flag down when what does occur.
There's a pretty wide group of elected officials and other prominent Virginians that have agreed to take part in this. But Virginia is one of a select group of states that the Obama campaign has decided where this is needed. Why is it that Virginia maybe gets some precedent over some other states across the country?
Well, I think there's no secret that Virginia is going to be a competitive state this November. The president won the state 4 years ago, and we want him to win it again. And so it's going to be in play, and that makes making sure that everybody understands the truth of the record critical.
Do you think this is a firewall state for the president? Does he have to win Virginia in order to get reelected?
Well, I want him to win Virginia, and I think actually he's going to win Virginia. If the election were held today, the polls suggest he would win Virginia. So whether it's a must state, well, we want to win every state we possibly can to build that coalition of support for the president in his reelection. Virginia is a critical state. Whether it's a must state, well, Ohio's a must state or a critical state. North Carolina's a must state or a critical state. Virginia is in that category.
All right, well, let's give you the opportunity to put this Truth Team to work. Obviously, the president released his budget today, and Republicans have roundly criticized it. One of the areas in particular that they've been critical of is the fact that it adds $1.3 trillion to the deficit. Is the deficit a priority for the president and for you as a member of the House of Representatives? And if so, why isn't that reflected in this budget?
It actually is reflected in this budget, and yes, it is a priority. The president would cut the debt in half in 5 years. But in this year of trying to sustain the economic recovery and put more people back to work, he's got to spend a little to make a little. And so in making an upfront investment in job creation, in infrastructure investment, he has a return on those investments, and you can see it in the next 5 years. To cut the debt in half in 5 years is actually a very significant thing, and I might point out the same Republicans who are criticizing the president are getting behind the Ryan budget, which actually would increase the debt, not decrease the debt.
It seems, though, that we've heard a lot of talk about down the road deficits and debt are going to be cut down, and then it doesn't seem to bear out in the facts. In fact, the president himself said that we were going to see some progress on deficit and debt reduction when he was running for this position initially. At what point are we actually going to see something come to bear on this, and will it require the president being reelected? And is that a promise and somewhat of a risk that people are taking by reelecting him when he made that promise originally when he was first running for office?
Well, the president inherited the worst economic contraction since the Great Depression. And he did everything in his power, with no help from the other side of the aisle, I might add, to save this economy and to turn it around. We're now in the 24th consecutive month of job growth. We're in positive GDP growth. We've doubled the stock market from where we started when he was sworn into office. Bush had gotten it down to 6,500. It's double that today. So we're in a much better place, thanks in large measure to policies of this president that were opposed by the other side of the aisle, who now want to criticize those policies for not being enough. And he wants to reduce the debt, as do all of us, but it has to be a balanced approach. And we've got to have economic growth and job creation while we're also tending to the fiscal situation and bringing down that red ink. The president has proposed a balanced approach that, as I said, cuts in half the debt in 5 years. That's not a trivial thing.
But there's been a lot of criticism, and it hasn't been just from Republicans, about this particular document that was issued today being nothing more than an election pamphlet. I mean, we've been operating in Washington without a formal budget for several years now. Is there any chance that this document gets passed, particularly on your side of the House, where Republicans dominate and have tended not be open to the president's policies?
Increasingly, all budgets are value statements. And we saw the Republican budget last year that would have ended Medicare as we know it for senior citizens in America. That's their value. This president has put together in this budget a set of priorities that are balanced, that also raise taxes on the wealthiest among us, making $1 million or more a year, to try to have better equity in the tax code. The Republicans have criticized this budget because it raises any taxes at all. Theirs is a very unbalanced approach, it seems to me, to funding the federal government and in trying to make sure there's equity reflected in our national policies. So we're going to have that debate going into the election cycle. Clearly, they decided in advance of even seeing the budget that it's dead on arrival from their perspective. I think that's unfortunate. They didn't even give it a fair hearing. And that kind of, I think, tells you a lot about how open-minded and fair-minded and how committed to equity they are or are not.
All right, Fairfax Congressman Jerry Connolly, one of the leaders of the Obama Truth Team. We appreciate you joining us, sir, and we'll talk to you in the near future.
My pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.